So in chapter 209, we see Saitama shopping, for sales and stuff. This is classic One Punch Man, a nice return to form after that ninja arc. And he's also like one punching some snail monster? I don't know. But anyway, he's coming to Genos, and they're kind of like having this bonding moment in this sequence, I guess. Another little surprising detail is that Genos apparently ran into a demon level monster here, and it was so strong that it like messed him up. Like he lost an arm in the process and his face is pretty messed up. Genos is incredibly powerful at this point in the story. I mean, he's not like Daedric Genos the way that he was in the Monster Association arc, but he's got to be comparable to that, right? I mean, he doesn't have like the 10-second full power Super Saiyan thing, but he's got to be comparable at base, base for base if you want to go. But I don't know what's really going on, because this demon level seemingly should be a dragon, unless this is the strongest demon ever. This is truly the above demon level monster that has been theorized for so many years. But then Genos asked Saitama for another sparring session. They had one like a couple chapters back, or at this point I guess it's a couple arcs back, and Saitama wound up being like unfazed by Genos. He was kind of just annoyed by like the light in his face, if anything. So Genos was kind of upset by that sequence, so he wants to run that back. But it's also for Dr. Kuseno, because he says he's taken interest in Saitama's physical capabilities, and that he would like to meet Saitama to do some proper data analysis on him. This is huge. Whenever Saitama's power comes up and it being analyzed by someone, it's really significant, because I think it means that we will get more info on Saitama's powers and how it works and everything. I mean, we got it with the narrator during Garo versus Saitama, but also, we have like Dr. Genus, who straight up explained what the limiter was to Zombie Man talking about Saitama. So Dr. Kuseno doing an analysis on Saitama can give us, like I said, more info on him, which is just so fascinating to me. It's like, trying to break down a nigh omnipotent being. Also, we're going back to that bonding moment I was talking about, because Genos is like getting better at shopping and Saitama is like impressed by it. And also in this panel at the bottom of the page where Genos is explaining what he bought for Saitama, we see like this shadowy figure in the building above them in the window looking down at them. I don't want to get too much into it, but this could be a little Easter egg that represents like God watching Saitama, because this is typically how God is depicted, right? Like a tall, bald silhouette figure, which, sometimes takes various forms. But I think that's, what's going on here. Also, like, kind of like the moon in the sky at night, because God is the moon and all that stuff. But anyway, let's move on, because they're running into Amai Mask here. And he's like, you're just too strong. If you're free around noon tomorrow, how about I invite you for tea or something? And that's pretty funny, because it sounds like he's like hitting on Saitama, but he's not. It's just, taken out of context, it can be taken that way. But he says, I have something I want to consult with you directly about. And then Genos says, we refuse. And like, that's how the chapter ends. But Amai Mask, interested in Saitama here, can't really get too much into why. I mean, we've seen that he's been very interested in Saitama, because he was looking at the security footage of Saitama like destroying the Metal Knight robots back at the Hero Association, and he's just been fascinated with him since then. So it's heavily implied that he realized that Saitama is the strongest. Like, strongest being in existence, essentially. Meaning that he's one of the few characters that, actually has that knowledge. So now he has some kind of proposition for Saitama. And this has kind of been a recurring thing right now, with Flashy Flash approaching Saitama, and that took us into the Ninja arc. Well, guess what? This has taken us into the Amai Mask arc, which is one of the best arcs in the series. It's one of my favorite stretch of chapters. I really, really enjoyed this back when it was released in the webcomic during the very start of the pandemic. And wow, it's just so good, way better than you think it's going to be, because you're like, Amai Mask, I guess he's kind of a cool character. How, interesting could an arc centered around him be? And it's like, well, get ready to be surprised. And I don't think that they're really going to deviate away from the webcomic continuity all that much, because this sequence right here is pretty much from the webcomic entirely. So we're coming to the meeting between Saitama and Amai Mask. And in this meeting, Amai Mask is dropping like top 5 most important exposition in the entire series, because he explains like the history of the One Punch Man world, and this is the first time that we, the audience, are ever hearing this information. So he says, a long time ago there used to be multiple so-called countries all over the earth that repeatedly waged large-scale world wars fighting over land and resources. So that's really interesting, because in the One Punch Man world that we know, the population is like divided by cities with a letter next to them. There's like no countries or anything like that. It's like city A, city Z, etc. So originally it did have a more standard structure for society, but it was all ruined by wars. And as the population declined and the preservation of the series became a priority, the human race unified its language and a global government was born. That was the first era of change. So right now in the One Punch Man world, everyone speaks the same language essentially, which I don't think we knew that before. As well as them having like a global government, which I guess makes sense if they're all, together at this point, which we're going to get into, because the effects of the World War continued to erode the planet, and the environment turned toxic, climate change accelerated, sea levels rose, and harmful organisms proliferated. So that kind of sounds like it's implying that it was the world wars that gave birth to monsters. Interesting. And in response, humanity abandoned other territories and focused all of its efforts on the supercontinent and carried out a mass migration. So yeah, the population of the One Punch Man world, or at least most of it, if not all of it, or like 99% of it, is comprised on a supercontinent. There are other continents, or at least land masses, in the One Punch Man world, at least from what we've seen on illustrations of the globe, but I don't think it's ever really talked about. Maybe the Temple of the Cruel Dragon is in one of those areas, possibly, but yeah, pretty interesting. I mean, we knew that there was a supercontinent. We actually see it in the first season of the anime, but we just didn't know that everyone just lived there together. But going further into all of this big exposition dump and dialogue, Amai Mask eventually says that the third era of change is upon us, and that humanity's natural enemy is the emergence of monsters possessing high degrees of intelligence. A few years ago, it was a rare phenomenon, but lately the constant evacuation alarms are getting on people's nerves. So yeah, all of these new super powerful dragons and intelligent monsters that we've been seeing are like a new thing in the One Punch Man world. They're like just as new as like the S-Class heroes are, because like the S-Class and like the Hero Association is only like I think 3 years old, or a little over 3 years old at this point in the story. And it seems like the super powerful monsters, or at least the really intelligent super powerful ones, are like just as new as that. Now, why is that? Well, it's just because God's plan is like accelerating, I suppose. And it's getting to the point of where it's closer than it's ever been for his resurrection. Like him slowly turning humanity into monsters is like part of his plan to, like, I don't know, whatever his ultimate plan is. We don't know what it is yet, but taking over humanity and possibly taking over the entire earth and becoming like one big organism with it. If that is truly what his plan is, like what we heard Sairochi say back in the Monster Association arc. But even if that's just not singularly the case, he still wants to like have a monster born on the level of Orochi that will sacrifice itself to bring him back, essentially, through like whatever stasis that he's trapped in, whatever dimension that he's trapped in. So he's just like farming humanity and just trying to breed that one special Orochi monster. But there's more to it than that. But anyway, going further, Amai Mask says that what's worse is most monsters originated among us. And that is, really fascinating, because it seems like most monsters are coming from humans. I mean, yeah, there are monsters that are just born monsters for sure, or even sometimes I guess animals becoming monsters. I think that's a thing, or just animal monsters. But humans becoming monsters is like the predominant like origin here. And I made a few videos as to what I think is the reasoning for this, because it's, at least in my opinion, being implied in this chapter that monsters weren't always like a thing. It's not just like a natural part of this world's humanity. It like just started happening one day. And I think it starts with God and his plans and what he's been doing whenever he made contact with the world, I guess, or at least had enough contact with it. And I guess it ultimately boils down to like the water and the food of this world are like tainted by whatever God has done done to it, and it like makes people susceptible to becoming monsters. Again, I made a whole video talking in depth about why this makes sense. I'll link it at the end of this video if I remember. But anyway, Amai Mask says that the remedy for all of this is to bring about like this big ultimate superhero, essentially, like a big mascot like Superman, but you know, he has like sponsors on him, essentially. That's like what Amai Mask wanted himself to be. But he realizes that he just can't. He's not strong enough to become this big ultimate messiah. I don't know if you guys have seen Expendables, a pretty good Marvel movie actually, but you know, I won't spoil anything, but in the movie there's this superhero named Sentry, and that's essentially like what they were trying to do in the Marvel world, like build up this Superman type character in Sentry and make him like the big singular mascot for heroes of the world. And Amai Mask wants that for Saitama because he knows how strong he is. There's actually this pretty comical sequence while he's explaining his plan to Saitama, and Saitama's not even listening, of course, because he's actually kind of annoyed that Amai Mask ordered a drink for him earlier in the beginning of the chapter. Like Saitama wanted cola, but then Amai Mask ordered ginger ale for him instead. But Amai Mask is like, you know, I'm considering abolishing the S-Class. This is a top secret project. Don't tell anybody. You know, sign this contract here. We'll give you an effective gear boost to combat the power from B-Class and lower, and we've contacted leading authority on hair research growth. But then we cut away and they're like at a different place, like having sushi, I guess. And Amai Mask is talking about this training camp that he's going to put Saitama through, and Saitama's like, you want to train with me? And Amai Mask's like, no, I'm well aware of your power, because, you know, like I was saying, like he knows how strong Saitama is. That's what made him gravitate towards him, making you know, Amai Mask one of the very few characters that knows how powerful Saitama is and actually is just like totally at peace with it and knows that he is stronger than him. But he goes on this dry erase board and he starts going over what he believes like everything a hero should be and what Saitama should do to achieve this big grand image that he has for him. And Saitama, of course, just falls asleep, not really paying attention. And Amai Mask's like, you know, wake up. It's only been, you know, 20 minutes. This is my ideal vision of a hero. And Saitama's like, you know, you haven't even started talking about heroes. And Amai Mask looks at him like dumbfounded, and like we see that, yeah, he's just been talking about branding and virality and trademark and support and all that stuff, but he hasn't talked about any actual aspects of what being a hero actually is. Which, you know, is Saitama breaking through to Amai Mask here. Amai Mask's already had a character arc getting to this point already, but he needs to have another one to get past this. Him being blindsided by this big grand plan that he has to save humanity from the monsters. So after all of these years, it's finally revealed what Amai Mask's secret is, and it's that he's just straight up a monster. Yeah, that's right. I mean, I know a lot of us assume that, but now we know for sure. And let me also point out that, yes, this was revealed 5 years ago in the webcomic, but before that, the community as a whole definitely wasn't all together on Amai Mask being a monster. I know it's easy to look back and just think like, oh, it's obvious. Well, it doesn't always work that way at the time in anime communities with speculation, theories, and all that stuff. It's always after the fact that everybody becomes Captain Hindsight. But yeah, Amai Mask has been suspicious since the very beginning of the series. I think the first suspicious thing we might see him do is when he's arguing with Metal Bat at the end of season 1 and his eyes suddenly start getting veiny and red. I guess that was one telling us like, oh hey, look at this guy, there's something beneath the surface with him. Then also, you know, in season 2 we saw when he took care of those two monsters at his concert performance, he did the same thing, looking all monstery. But still a human, not enough to convince us that he was a monster. And then, you know, throughout the series later on, once it gets past the anime and we go back into the manga, we see his incredible feats of strength, which is nothing too unusual because, you know, S-Class heroes are strong. They don't necessarily have to be monsters. But it wasn't really until much later on into the Monster Association War when he gets destroyed by Fura Ugly. He gets his face smashed and then he literally gets ripped in half. One of the most violent sequences in the entire series. And you'd think like, oh, he's clearly dead at that point, but no, he lived. Not only did he live, but he's like, as we can see in this chapter, he's not ripped in half anymore. And it's because he has regeneration. I mean, like, really good regeneration. I think this, outside of his shape-shifting ability, is the hallmark of Amai Mask's abilities as a monster. And before we break down, like, the monster that Amai Mask is and what makes him, like, a pretty cool monster, actually, and a very unique one for the series, let's go into his backstory real quick, because this is actually the first time we're getting this in the series. So, coming off of the previous chapter, we saw him talking to Saitama because he realized that Saitama is the one above all in this world, and he's trying to create essentially like Homelander in the One Punch Man world using Saitama. So he's trying to brief him on that, and it eventually gets to the point where like he's not breaking through to Saitama with his plan of becoming like the new #1 mascot hero, because he's essentially just trying to make like a brand, like a mascot. As where we know Saitama doesn't care about that stuff, he just wants to be a hero as a hobby. You know, come and go, do what he needs to do, save people, but not make like a job out of it. Which, you know, Amai Mask figures like, oh, that's interesting. Maybe that is the true quality of being a hero. So then afterwards, he takes Saitama to like this amusement park, and they're in this Ferris wheel, or gondola, as it is said in this chapter. And Amai Mask explains his backstory to Saitama. He says he always had an inferiority complex with his ugly appearance. And to compensate for it, he thought that he should at least be beautiful on the inside and lived his life adhering to strict moral principles. So around 3 years ago, when the Hero Association first started, he had joined because it was really easy to get in at that point, and he worked his way from C class to B class, being a masked hero. He actually looks pretty impressive for like a C class hero, so it makes more sense that he eventually became B. Even though that doesn't really have anything to do with it, but you know what I mean. Anyway, he wound up becoming Secret Mask, and he actually had somewhat of a little cult following too. And of course, being Secret Mask, he kept his identity a secret because he was hideous at this point in time, and he didn't want anyone to see what he looks like, until one day he fought a monster that broke his mask, and everyone got to see his face, but to his surprise, he wasn't ugly anymore. He looked like Amai Mask. And he says it was at that moment that I finally understood what was happening to my body, a body that had strengthened many-fold through unnatural means, and an appearance that had conveniently transformed because I cursed my ugliness. I had become a monster. And that's where the chapter ends. So yeah, the huge reveal right there. Amai Mask is a freaking monster, and not only that, but he started off as like an ugly guy, but his resentment eventually transformed him into a idol hero. We don't typically see things like this in the One Punch Man world with the monster mutation. Usually it'll just keep going and doubling down and make you even uglier, right? Because we saw that with Führer Ugly. He was known as an Ugmon, a human that was ugly and used that hatred that they had developed from being ridiculed and all that resent that they have, and that monsterized them and made them even uglier and even more powerful. But with Amai Mask, on the other hand, he went in a different direction and became handsome. Now, of course, there's no clear exact science to how this stuff works. We don't even really know where it comes from or how it works at all, other than negative emotions can cause a cellular reaction that make you a freaking monster. But it's possible that because Amai Mask still had this altruistic aspect to him. You know, he wanted to compensate, as he says, at least be beautiful on the inside. Maybe it's this conflict of emotions that allowed him to keep his humanity, but still gain the benefits of being a monster. You know, super strength, the ability to transform and whatever. So he's kind of like in this purgatory. He's still a monster for sure, but he's still maybe possibly somewhat a human. It could be mirroring Garo. But this is, of course, why he tells Saitama why he himself cannot be this big, you know, Homelander, Sentry, #1 hero to be the mascot for the world. It's because he's a freaking monster, and he knows it. He's going to reveal more in the next chapter about what's going on with him, so I don't want to spoil it here, but I'll just say that, yeah, he's a monster, and it's not just like he can live this lie forever and just be Amai Mask. It's like he just can't do that. He's kind of at a time limit right now with things, if anything. And to end this off, let's just go into what makes Amai Mask pretty cool as a monster, and it's that his transformation ability. Yes, we've seen other monsters can like shapeshift and transform and stuff, but with Amai Mask, it's a little different, I guess. And I just think it's like a really cool dynamic. You know, like a hero that looks like a human, but then they transform into a monster and become stronger. Or at least that's the implication. Right, I mean, we've seen that dynamic quite a few times in other series, but I just think it would be really cool in One Punch Man, especially with how, there's been a line drawn in the sand between human and monsters. You can't work together. So we're continuing the big reveal about Amai Mask being a monster. This happened at the end of the previous chapter, and now we're getting more into his backstory. And we're seeing that once he transformed into, the handsome Amai Mask that we've come to know, he kind of just went with it. I mean, why wouldn't you? I mean, if this happened to you, not in this world, but if you were in the One Punch Man world, you would definitely probably go with it too. Because at this point, you don't really know what the side effects are or if there are even any. So over time, given this, he eventually became, number one in popularity and, the big hero that he eventually is known to be. But it's also shown that, before this happened, he was, doing good for society in his own way. I mean, whether he was defending citizens or, straight up just picking up litter. Now, this is pretty funny because, in Japan, there is no litter, but, this is technically, City A or whatever where he comes from, but I'm just saying. Amai Mask is a good person, at his core. He wanted to help. That's essentially all he wanted to do. Even as, a hideous person that he was. I mean, he was so ugly that they don't even draw him. It's just his face silhouetted. But he did want attention. That's his character flaw at first, I guess. Because he says nobody would pay attention to him. And that's what led to his monsterification, of course. Because, we've seen that before. That's kind of what excels that explosion of negative emotions that causes a cellular reaction and makes you a monster. Or as Dr. Gina says, him being ugly, wanting attention, wanting admiration and all that stuff, it made him become what he wanted. Which is interesting because, we talked about this before. The same thing happened with Führer Ugly. Well, not exactly the same, but extremely similar. Except with Führer Ugly, he just became more ugly and more powerful. But with Amai Mask, he became handsome and powerful. But now we're getting into the side effects. Because he says that recently he started to actually feel the monsterization process affecting his mind too. So this is what I was talking about in my previous review, how there's kind of a time limit or a ticking clock to what's going on with Amai Mask. Yes, he does have this, idle hero form that he can transform into while retaining all of his monster strength and regeneration. However, eventually his mind will degrade into full monsterization, which I guess is just full psychopathy. As we've seen before with the other monsters, there's, little to no empathy in them at all. It varies with some of them, like Koketsu. I'm not saying he was an altruistic individual, but he definitely wasn't as just crazy full-blown psychopath as the other monsters that we saw during his time. He genuinely was giving Bakuzan a chance. The other crazy monsters would have just ate Bakuzan's head. You know what I'm saying? So I guess it really ultimately comes down to how powerful and how strong you are as a person inherently, I suppose, determines what type of monster you're going to become and how the phenomenon will individually affect you depending on how powerful you are. And in Amai Mask's case, he had, such strong resolve and will to protect and serve the community that it was able to fight off his vices of, wanting attention and wanting to be handsome. But it can only go so long, because he even says himself that if he's faced with a situation where he can only save one side, he'll choose to sacrifice the side with fewer casualties without hesitation. I'm pretty sure this is referencing that test where you see train tracks and then there's one track diverting and then there's people on both of the tracks. One track has 100 people or something and one track has 3. And there's a train coming and it's what do? Do you save the 100 people or do you save the 3 people? And Amai Mask's yeah, he doesn't even have to think. He's going to save the 100 people and not even care that the 3 people died. And that's only the beginning of it. It eventually will get to the point of where he'll just let everyone die, I suppose. So that's why he's been trying to recruit Saitama to become his homelander, essentially. Because he can't do it himself. he's eventually going to just become a full-blown monster and lose any kind of heroism that he had. So he wants to pass on this idea to Saitama. And as he's explaining all of this to Saitama, he's more so going into the fact of it being like a selfish endeavor rather than it being about helping people. He's like, don't you care about your stupid name? Cape Baldy. Keep that in mind because that's going to come back later on. No spoilers. But Amai Mask, he just starts going crazy. He's like, you just got to pay more attention to your appearance. You can become more popular than I am. You'll have tons of fan mail and there'll be lines at your events for signings and there'll be products and sponsors. And he's like freaking out here because the monster side is taking over. Like, this is why he became a monster. This is what he ultimately has always, selfishly wanted. And he's like passing it on to Saitama, and Saitama's like, sounds like a puppet, which it is, because that's what Amai Mask wants. He wants to vicariously live through Saitama here. And Saitama points that out because he's like, would the ideal hero care about others' opinions? Isn't this more about rather than how you are seen? We're all human after all. And that's another thing that I wanted to point out. I didn't really talk about this in the previous review because I guess I talked about it in my original webcomic review 5 years ago, but Saitama doesn't care that Amai Mask is a monster because he knows that he's a good person. I mean, yeah, he knows that he's done bad things, that he's conflicted and everything, but he knows that he's trying to do the right thing, and that's why he's saying we're all human after all. Like, Amai Mask is still a human, like he still clearly has his humanity, but he's also a monster at the same time. And Saitama's just trying to pry back at that humanity, I suppose, in his own subtle, nonchalant way. And as I say that, he's trying to like ghost Amai Mask here. He's like, oh crap, it's almost evening. I said I would hang out with King, gotta go. And then he just bounces out of there. And as he's like going away, Amai Mask is thinking to himself, and he's like, this is a crucial moment that will determine whether the hero association that I built can stand firm. This is really interesting, especially if you've been following the webcomic currently. I won't spoil it, but there's other S-Class heroes who share this sentiment. Not just one, but there's like multiple that you could say feel this way. And I think that's a really interesting dynamic that one is building up here. It's like multiple S-Class heroes thinking that they are building and controlling and nurturing and establishing the Hero Association, like as an individual. Like they all think that they're doing their own thing and that like they're the pillars of this whole operation. And I'm wondering where that's going to all lead. But suddenly and conveniently out of nowhere, this clown monster shows up and he starts attacking people at this amusement park that they're at. And he's like, everybody's watching. It feels so good. And clearly this is supposed to parallel Amai Mask. It's just a wild coincidence. There happened to be a monster here that has like the same type of vice that Amai Mask does. It wants attention. I mean, obviously this guy is like completely crazy and didn't have the willpower or strength that Amai Mask did, so he's just full-blown psychopath here. But I guess we're just seeing what I was talking about earlier, the difference in people. Two examples of people wanting attention, one becoming this crazy clown monster and one becoming freaking Amai Mask. But before he can really hurt anyone, Amai Mask steps in and just one-shots him. And that's where the chapter ends. So you're thinking like, well, that was easy. What a interesting way to end the chapter. And I agree, but obviously it's not that simple. I mean, it would just be weird if this is just how that wraps up. Like, imagine just cutting away from this and just going to like another storyline. It's like, that was weird. I guess is that symbology? Does that mean that Amai Mask has defeated his personal demons and that he's ready to move on? Has he had his character arc? No, that's not what this means. Although you could construe it that way if you didn't know what was going to happen, I guess. So picking up from the previous chapter, we saw that Amai Mask was trying to convince Saitama to become like his new ultimate all-powerful hero mascot because Amai Mask himself cannot become that. It was revealed that he is actually a monster who can transform and alter his appearance, which is why he looks like Amai Mask and not a big hideous monster. But as time is going on, he's losing more and more of his humanity. Saitama wound up going away, not really accepting the offer, which left Amai Mask at this amusement park, which we'll get into because itself is really weird and interesting. But he comes across this clown monster, and we saw at the end of the chapter he just one-shotted it, but like we were talking about, it's never that easy. And of course, because this monster can regenerate. I mean, from like full-blown, massacred, blown-apart death. And Amai Mask deduces that it has something to do with the balloons, because we see that after he kills the clown the first time, or at least he thought he did, one of the balloons pops and then the monster regenerates and comes back. But seemingly even more resilient than he was before. Amai Mask goes on to say that this could be a merged with his costume type of monster. When it receives damage, the balloons take its place and burst when the allowed amount of damage is exceeded. And if his theory is correct, it can resist 2 more fatal blows since, it has 3 balloons. Now this is wild because I think this is the second or third instance we've seen of a quote-unquote costume monster, or a person who merged with their costume and became a monster, because of course the most famous example is Phoenix Man. And Phoenix Man originally was one of the strongest monsters ever, but I think one realized that he had overpowered it and he had to nerf it with, what we know Phoenix Man now as, like the penguin guy. Which is fine, but originally he was something very different. Brilliant Eagle mode Phoenix Man. Not only could he bring back the dead, but he said that his suit straight up talked to him. And he couldn't die either. He just kept coming back to life if you did push him to the point of death. And when he would come back, he would be so much stronger than he was previously. He became so strong that he had to be defeated by a comical gimmick from Child Emperor using a tickle robot. So these costume monsters can become extremely powerful. But not only does this guy have a merged monster costume power, he also has another ability to where he gains strength from the more attention that he gets. So as I said in the title of this video, this is easily one of the strongest monsters that we've seen in years. Sure, he's not like a disaster level god, cosmic level guy like Cosmic Fear Garo or pre-retcon Empty Void, but just, standard monsters without the god hacks. This guy is up there. He has the merged monster clown costume thing with the 3 balloons that allow him to come back from death. And then on top of that, he also has the extra ability where the more attention he receives, the stronger he gets. So this is like the perfect environment for him. And as he is getting stronger, we see that he's able to now survive Amai Mask's strike. Previously in the last chapter, he wasn't able to, but now he's taken it. And Amai Mask is even surprised himself. He's like, the fact that it could block my piercing strike despite being at such a low level. And the low level that we find out is this guy is a freaking tiger. I mean, I don't know if he's a tiger when he's taking that strike from Amai Mask, but the dialogue box does say he is a tiger. So it's possible he was even a wolf in the previous chapter, but wow, he's the strongest tiger ever if he's able to take this strike from Amai Mask. Also, I really like how Amai Mask throws his strikes. It's not like a punch. It's like he's using his hand as like a knife or something. Very fitting to how he is. Then we see that out of nowhere, it turns out that Narinki's private squad is now the security of this theme park. Now, these guys are important, I guess, because they're part of Amai Mask's character arc, I suppose. Now, we know, back in the Monster Association arc, Narinki, the son of Oganma, that spoiled rich kid that the Monster Association kidnapped, which started the whole war of leading the heroes into their base, that guy had sent his own private squad, these guys, into the Monster Association, thinking that he was going to handle things himself. But of course, they got, instantly overcome and then became slaves to Super S, which is where they eventually ran into Amai Mask and Atomic Samurai's disciples. Now, in the original continuity, a couple years ago, Amai Mask just destroyed these guys, brutally murdered them. I mean, granted, they were under the control of Super S, so they were technically monsters at that point, but yeah, it just showed that Amai Mask wasn't messing around. Now, one went on to retcon that sequence, change it completely. Yes, he still did show that Amai Mask wanted to kill them and was trying to, but it wound up being Iron that saves Narinki's private squad from being brutally murdered by Amai Mask. And then that further shows Amai Mask like, oh, hey, maybe I didn't need to do that. Maybe I could just be more like Iron. So these characters are here for this very reason, I suppose. To aid in the character arc that Amai Mask is about to possibly have. Also, this theme park is Narinki's park. Like we see the logo for it in one of the last pages of the chapter here. That means that guy you know, we knew that he was one of the top donors to the Hero Association, but this guy's like very rich. He's got his own freaking theme park. But after the initial scuffle that Amai Mask got into with the pesky clown here, Amai Mask realizes like, oh, this guy's extremely powerful. He's not just a normal tiger like what I thought. And he's like, okay, everyone, it's dangerous. You're going to have to get out of here. I'll deal with the monster. You know, trying to get the civilians out of this theme park. But they immediately pick up on his voice. And they're like, oh, wait, that's Amai Mask. And then even the pesky clown's like, oh, wait, is that Amai Mask? So now everyone is aware that Amai Mask is fighting a monster, which is a double negative here. Because Amai Mask, of course, he doesn't want to be seen at this moment because he's been struggling with his humanity. Second of all, he's trying to save these people from the pesky clown. Did I say it was a double negative? Well, it's a triple negative. Third of all, he is giving the pesky clown more attention by everyone focusing on Amai Mask. So now the pesky clown is getting even stronger. As we see in this final panel, he is bulking up even more, possibly going to demon level. I mean, I guess he has to, right? Since he's Tiger at this point, or at least it's said, allegedly. Now, how strong is Amai Mask at this point in time? I would say that he's for sure dragon level in strength. I mean, he kind of has to be, considering what he's done and who he's fought and the feats that he has. But I'm not saying he's like a high dragon or anything. He's probably on the lower spectrum of dragon strength. So as long as the pesky clown doesn't itself get to dragon level, he should be okay, right? But, you know, it's probably not going to be that easy, since we just said we are now in a theme park surrounded by people watching his fight against the pesky clown. You can imagine how much stronger it's going to make this thing. And I feel like we're also getting into like another Phoenix Man situation here, because Phoenix Man was left to his own devices and he became too strong for that point in the series. And I feel like you could do the very same thing here with the pesky clown. I mean, he could just infinitely keep getting buffed, right? The more and more attention that he got. And it also makes you wonder, like, let's just say he ran into Saitama and he didn't have all three of his balloons with him. Like, he left two of the balloons, I don't know, somewhere close by. So if Saitama were to punch him, in theory, he could live from a Saitama punch, because, you know, if he had all three balloons, Saitama would just one punch him, all the balloons would pop, and that's it. But I wonder how far it can go. Would Saitama's punch be too strong that it would just instantly pop all three balloons? Probably, but I would like to see it if he could survive it anyway. I mean, that's not going to happen. I'm not spoiling anything. Saitama isn't going to fight this pesky clown here, or at least in the webcomic he didn't. I guess that's a spoiler, but it could change in the manga. But, I mean, come on, this is like a Amai Mask's thing. He needs to do this himself. So we're continuing the fight between Amai Mask and the pesky clown in this chapter. So to catch you up to speed real quick, Amai Mask was talking to Saitama, trying to convince him to become his new mascot idol hero. Saitama refused, and coincidentally, they were at this theme park, which was actually Narinki's theme park. You know, the guy with the son that gets kidnapped by the Monster Association, which kind of starts that whole thing with the S-Class having to go into the Monster Association to save him, because Narinki is like one of the biggest donators of the Hero Association. I think I already talked about this before. I just think it's so interesting that one decided to give this guy like his own theme park. Also another reason to have Narinki's private squad there, which are now like the security team. Anyway, turns out that there's like this crazy clown monster guy there, and he has fused with his suit. Like, that's the monsterization that he underwent, similar to Phoenix Man. And as we've seen, these like monster that merge with their suits are way more powerful, or have the propensity to have broken abilities that other monsters typically wouldn't have. Phoenix Man, you know, he had the mode changes, he had resurrection ability, he could raise the dead. Before the retcons, he was on his way to becoming disaster level god for sure. And I guess in a way, the pesky clown could, in theory, reach those levels as well. Let me explain. So pesky clown merged with his suit. So now he has like these three balloons, which are like his 3 lives. He can be killed 3 times. And so far he's been killed once, and we'll talk more about his other deaths in this chapter as well. But the more attention he receives, the stronger he gets. So we're in like this perfect scenario, this perfect experiment for the pesky clown to become, in theory, high dragon level, possibly. Right now he's probably demon level, but we'll get into that. So Amai Mask has been fighting this guy, and so far he's been able to kill him once. 1 balloon popped, so now he has 2 left. But we're seeing all of the spectators in this chapter really showing how they are stupid. And you might think like, man, this is so unrealistic. Why are they just standing there and watching it and recording and not caring about danger or their well-being? To be honest, I think this kind of mirrors reality very accurately. Maybe not so much Japan, but definitely America. Like, look up some videos of people at Yellowstone interacting with the animals. It'll really give you a better understanding of where one is coming from writing this chapter. That's all I'm going to say. But the dialogue really focuses on the spectators a little too much, in my opinion. Like, one page, sure. But there's like 3 pages of just showing us all the spectators looking and talking and us being annoyed with them, I suppose. Now, this all is leading to something really significant, something that is going to completely change the landscape of the series, for sure. It's just that One and Murata are kind of taking their time to get there, which is fine. We've got time, guys. Plenty of more story to go through. I mean, if you're going by the webcomic, which I know not all of you read, and that's fine, you don't have to. There is so much more of the story that is to be adapted. We still have another 5 years maybe before it catches up to that. So we got time, guys. Let's just chill. No need to rush through this stuff. But it's ultimately showing that, like, the more attention that the clown is getting, the stronger he becomes. However, he's still not strong enough to, like, defeat Amai Mask, because even as Amai Mask is, like, saving these idiotic spectators who are, like, trying to get his glasses and not even caring about the pesky clown monster there, he's able to save them and at the same time, like, kick the pesky clown in the face in a pretty cool sequence. Then gives him, like, a backhand and gives him another combo and just winds up kicking him and killing him. Like, this combo that he gives to him kills the pesky clown again, and we get the second balloon pop, meaning that he only has 1 balloon left, 1 life left. However, now things are getting really bad because people are whipping out their phones and they're starting to record it, which means more attention, more eyeballs. And it's like all over social media. It's on YouTube, it's on TikTok, it's on Twitter. And as we're coming to the end of the chapter here, the pesky clown has evolved yet again, become stronger and bigger and more menacing. And he's gotten to the point of where he's just manhandling Amai Mask. He's like, such an impressive amount of attention. Power is overflowing. It's scary even for me. Thank you, sweet Mask. I think we could say that he is for sure dragon level at this point, because I really don't think a demon would give Amai Mask trouble like this. I don't think Amai Mask has said how strong he is or how strong he thinks he is yet. Maybe they said it in the previous chapter, I forget, but I know for sure in the webcomic Amai Mask scales himself to dragon level, which is accurate. So at this point, they should be even, or relatively even. Like, it'll be a competitive fight at this point, but the pesky clown may have just jumped to like mid dragon maybe, or something like that. Is that still a thing? Are we still saying low, mid, high dragon? I might have to make like another video going over that stuff, because I haven't gone through the series from start to finish in a while, especially since all of the new retcons and the new continuity stuff, you know, in the middle of the Monster Association that kind of like changed things. So I'll have to go through that again, maybe make a like an hour-long video going through the new power scale of One Punch Man. I don't know. I don't even know if anybody cares anymore, to be honest. Anyway, yes, this chapter was short, and it seems like it's like part 1 of, you know, 2-part chapter or something. But like I said, this is all leading to something really great. Like, when this happened in the webcomic during the pandemic, it was one of my favorite chapters of the entire series, which the next chapter is going to be. Not going to spoil anything, but you kind of see where this is going, right? I mean, if I lay this out for you, is it spoiling? Because look, let's go back 1 page, actually. We're seeing everyone recording this interaction, right? And yes, part of it is to make the pesky clown stronger, you know, showing everyone on social media looking at him, millions of people. I mean, it's showing thousands, but it's obviously going to get the millions. So that's part of it, right? But they're also seeing Amai Mask here. So it's like, what's going to happen with Amai Mask? Is he going to be publicly murdered here by the pesky clown, or is something else going to happen? So we're finally seeing Amai Mask's true form in this chapter, and this is what it looks like. This is the true form of Amai Mask. Well, I guess 80% of it, because, you know, as you can see on the side, half of his face is still somewhat human, and then you see it like emerging out into what his true form looks like. We were speculating about Amai Mask being a true monster this whole time, and obviously we know that he hadn't started off as a monster. He started off as a human, of course. It's actually kind of rare in One Punch Man that monsters are born monsters. It's kind of implied that Black S, for example, was born a monster, which is like interesting. How did that happen, and what did he become a monster from if he's black S? Anyway, we got a glimpse of what Amai Mask's true form looked like, at least as a human initially. In chapter 211, it silhouetted Oda style. Actually better than Oda, because we were actually able to make out like what he looked like. Sorry, I'm not trying to hate on Oda, it's just more of a frustration. And when I say true form, I mean not like his monster form, I mean like what he actually looked like as a human, because what we see of Amai Mask is just a facade, which it goes into the double layering of his name. Not only is it his hero name that was given to him by the people that had watched him, but it's more so means like he is literally wearing a handsome mask, like Amai Mask, handsome mask, because he is ugly. And when I say ugly, I'm not trying to be like mean about it. And I know the way things have changed in the last 10 years. We can't really say people are ugly or fat anymore. But at least just in the context of this manga page, can we just say that Amai Mask, he was ugly, okay? And also, I don't think Japanese people really care about that stuff, so they for sure will say someone is ugly or fat, such as what they're doing in One Punch Man and other mangas. I mean, there's a character called Führer Ugly. That in itself is very problematic by Western standards. I mean, Führer Ugly? Come on. But we'll come back to Führer Ugly because, you know, he relates to this stuff. But once Amai Mask had monsterized, he had gained that ability of shape-shifting, as well as like regeneration and super strength. So what we have seen of Amai Mask has always been what he wants us to see, which I guess also could be like a deeper meta-narrative. He's continuing to fight the pesky clown just as he has for these last couple months, it feels like weeks. And I will criticize one here, and Murata. Less Murata, it's more so one that is paneling and writing the story here. It's kind of just Murata who is adapting it and making it beautiful. But it does feel like this fight has been dragging on a lot longer than it needs to, especially that last chapter, which was essentially just filler. Like, they could have just easily fused the last chapter and this chapter together and it would have been fine. Now, of course, I'm not saying rush the story, because I don't ever want that with any series. But, you know, we need to call things out when they need to be called out. But it's finally gotten to the point of where the pesky clown is essentially going to kill Amai Mask. And it's because he is progressively getting stronger and stronger due to his ability stacking. He can survive death 3 times and he's down to 1 life at this point. But also the more attention that he gets, the stronger he gets. And since he's fighting Amai Mask, who is ostensibly the most famous hero in the world essentially, since he's like a K-pop idol as well. I don't even want to say J-pop because he's more like a K-pop guy, to be honest. As we see, the crowd is watching him, recording it. And then the recording, of course, is going on social, and now it's on the news, and he's just getting ultra buffed from this. And we were speculating in the previous chapter, oh, is he demon level at this point? And he was for sure, because it was officially classified as a demon level threat. Even though, like, when it is officially made by the people in this world, it doesn't always mean that it is, like, accurate. And I don't know if one intentionally meant that, but, like, if you go back to when Beefcake, that big monster guy, was first, like, introduced, his disaster level was demon. Considering the damage he was doing, that was easily above dragon. Not saying that his strength in relation to the other characters was above dragon, but you know what I mean. But now it is straight up being confirmed in this chapter by Amai Mask himself that the pesky clown has reached dragon level. And Amai Mask for sure knows what dragon level is, because he fought against the Cadres in the Monster Association War, and he got freaking destroyed. Which brings us back to Führer Ugly, who, you know, literally ripped him in freaking half. So now that Amai Mask has gotten to the point of where he's literally going to die if he doesn't go all out, he is forced to transform. Which also brings up something really fascinating. It's that Amai Mask has been holding back this entire time. Throughout the entire series, he has never gone full power, because in order to do that, he needs to transform into his full, true monster form. And obviously, we've never seen that. So even when he was getting ripped in half by freaking Führer Ugly, he still stayed reserved and didn't go all out. And you're thinking, okay, why didn't he? Well, it's because he doesn't want to expose himself. He didn't want to expose himself to the other S-Class heroes for being a monster because they would have killed him probably. At least Flashy Flash would have instantly decapitated him if he found out that Amai Mask was a monster. Even though Flashy Flash has had, a big character arc, especially accepting Monaco, which is interesting because they also had that little interaction where Amai Mask was like, what are you doing with that monster? And he almost killed Monaco before Saitama surfing that aircraft carrier saved the day. But I just think it all, of course, ties together and it goes more into the complex character that Amai Mask is. And now in this instance, he's in front of all of these people and he's like, I can't go full power. I can't show, myself to the world because then it's over. At least for him, it's over. Everything that he has built, everything that he is trying to build will all be for naught if he exposes himself. And it gets to the point of where this Ferris wheel is about to fall over and kill hundreds, if not thousands of people, maybe. And in this moment of struggling, he remembers Saitama looking at him. And I think he's remembering the moment when they're sitting in the Ferris wheel, which was like moments before this. And I'm cutting into the conversation, but Saitama says, would the ideal hero care about others' opinions? Isn't it more about what you are rather than how you are seen? We're all human after all. And at first, Amai Mask kind of just no-sold that. He was more upset about Saitama not listening to what he was saying to Saitama about, his pitch about being the ideal hero and all that stuff. But obviously, that hit him to the core in his subconscious because now he's remembering it, and those words are reverberating inside of him, and he just lets go. He decides to transform, save the people that are falling from this Ferris wheel. And it goes back to what we were talking about in the beginning. This is his true form, or at least 80% of it. In the next chapter, we will see what he truly looks like, and as you can tell, it's going to be pretty grotesque. Also, this shows how freaking strong Amai Mask truly is. He is doing a lat pull down of a freaking Ferris wheel. And I think it goes without saying that if Amai Mask was that strong holding back in his human form, then you can assume that him in his true monster form is for sure dragon level. I mean, he has to be dragon level. Literally, he has to be at least dragon level in order to defeat the pesky clown here. So, in case you guys were wondering how strong truly is Amai Mask, he's minimum dragon level in strength, for sure. So we're fully seeing Amai Mask's monster form in this chapter, which is like his true form. This is what Amai Mask actually is. Everything that we have seen up until this point in the series has just been his facade or his Amai Mask, his handsome mask. And that's because once he became a monster, he gained the ability to shapeshift. So that's how he's able to be like that J-pop, K-pop idol Amai Mask that we've come to know. But while he's been doing that, he's been suppressing his true form and also his true power. Because while he is, in his Amai Mask form, he's still pretty powerful, as we've seen. I mean, he's obviously S-Class level in strength and responsibility for sure. As we're seeing in this chapter, he is much stronger than what we initially thought, because he's no longer holding back or has that limiter placed on him through being transformed. And it's just starting off with this incredible feat, picking up from the end of the previous chapter, where he is lat pull downing this Ferris wheel, saving everyone in the park from it falling on them. And at first, the spectators here aren't aware that Amai Mask is monstering out yet, because he's far away, and also he's still able to hold one half of his face intact. And as he comes down, the pesky clown is waiting for him, who is also disaster level dragon in strength at this point, due to him growing in power from him getting attention from everyone and the fight against Amai Mask. And this, of course, excites him because he also just wants to bring out the most of Amai Mask and I guess just have a good fight against him. And he goes right after him, but now everything has changed now that Amai Mask is no longer holding back. And he just instantly grabs his leg and pulls a freaking chunk out of his shin, brute force, monstrously, just. And remember, this is a disaster level dragon monster. He's not some chump. This is a really powerful monster. Then he just levels him in the face, literally caves his face in with a strike, and it's brutal. The crowd just suddenly goes silent. They're like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. But not only that, they finally get a good look at what Amai Mask truly looks like, and he's, as you guessed, he's pretty hideous looking. He's something like a cross between Ryuk from Death Note and the Toxic Avenger. To be honest, at least in my opinion, he kind of looks cool. I mean, he's gross for sure, but like in a cool way. Like Murata, I was wondering how he was going to handle this, and he did a pretty good job. I mean, granted, not fully grossed out yet. He is still like somewhat keeping that side of his face intact, but you can see what he truly is, and it's, you know, it's gross. And the crowd is just something between scared and grossed out by this, and they start running away. And rightfully they should, because they live in a society where monsters mean death. And Amai Mask is like, oh, I can't go back. I can't focus. What am I? And it's like losing himself in trying to lap pull down the Ferris wheel and also just fighting back against the pesky clown. He's temporarily, I guess, lost the ability to shapeshift back into his K-pop, J-pop idol form. And he's kind of just stuck in his true form here. So now the world knows the secret about Amai Mask. Everyone knows this whole entire time, ostensibly the most famous hero in the world has secretly been a monster this whole time. That is like a massive bombshell. And this moment in time single-handedly will change the entire landscape of the series, because there has been a monster hiding in plain sight in the association, but also in pop culture for years now. And it's not like everybody can just instantly rationalize that, like, oh, he's one of the good ones. I mean, yeah, he was saving us this whole time, but he was just a monster that was conflicted, and he was trying to, you know, help humanity. You know, he's not a bad guy. It's like, of course they're not going to think that. Think about the way social media works. You think everybody just immediately starts rationalizing things when a story comes out about someone? No, they immediately just start thinking the worst about the person. It's very rare that anyone wants to hear two sides of the story, especially when it comes to the vast majority of people. And speaking of social media, this is all over it, because this fight against the pesky clown has been streamed everywhere, not only by just people on their phones, but also like news stations and everything. It's like playing in like their version of Times Square. So everyone, I mean everyone knows. And even if Amai Mask was able to keep this under wraps longer, his mind was still monsterizing. It was just a matter of time before he completely lost himself to the monsterization psychopathy. That was the whole reason why he was trying to build up Saitama to be like what he wanted a true, you know, hero to be, in his eyes at least. Also, speaking of that, I've been rereading One Punch Man, like from the beginning, all of the volumes and everything, and I think the very first time that we ever see Amai Mask in the series is in Volume 3's bonus chapter, A New Wind Blows, which is the chapter that features Glasses. By the way, I haven't forgot about Glasses, guys. Maybe one has, but I haven't. I'm going to make an updated video about him and what I think his future is. I'm also going to make like a whole bunch of new One Punch Man content, like power scale stuff, the new disaster level ratings and tier lists and everything. Once I finish reading it and everything, I have like a whole new perspective on the series. So subscribe if you haven't already, guys. I ask the One Piece audience to subscribe all the time, but One Punch Man viewers of my stuff, please subscribe. We're almost at 300K. Not that 300K like really matters. It's not really that impressive anymore. The ultimate goal is 1 million. And I'm sure some of you are like, Zhoniin, you'll never get to 1 million. Just stop. You're an idiot. That's fine, but we can at least try. Also, if you like the video, that'll boost it, get it to more people, so we can get more people in the comment section, more viewers, more people to argue with, more people to call me an idiot, more people to make friends with potentially. So, you know, help me out. All you got to do is just do this on your phone screen. It's easy. Thank you, I appreciate it. But anyway, back to what I was saying about Volume 3's bonus chapter with Glasses. In the very first page of that chapter, we see Amai Mask like on the big screen, like their Times Square. He's like in this interview with somebody, and they're asking him like, what does it take to be a hero? And he's like, anyone can become a hero if you feel desire and peace in your heart. Well, of course, it's better if you also got the courage to stand up to monsters and a strong body to go with it. Once you have that, well, make sure never to neglect working on yourself in order to become a beautiful symbol for justice. At first, you're just thinking like, oh, that's just how Amai Mask is. But like, in retrospect, Amai Mask was always working towards that goal. Always like keeping the facade up, but also working towards making a hero successor that he ultimately wanted to be, like the big savior mascot of humanity. Which means that yes, one always knew what Amai Mask's story was way back in the beginning, 10 years before it was even revealed. So, yeah, he's amazing. But anyway, we see Saitama still on his way home because he was originally talking to Amai Mask at Narinki's amusement park, but then he left, and we see that he's gonna go challenge King to play a video game because he still hasn't beaten him. He's lost over 1,500 times to him. But Genos intercepts Saitama here, and he's like, yo, Sensei, there's a report that an extremely dangerous monster has appeared at the city amusement park, and since Amai Mask is already engaging, S-class backup has been requested. Then we see them both looking at the TV in the city, and Saitama at this point in time finally sees that, oh, wow, Amai Mask is a freaking monster. That's wild. I mean, he doesn't say that, but, you know, his expression tells the story. And Genos asks him, like, Sensei, just what is this? And Saitama doesn't really say anything until the last page, where he's like, Genos, I'll go ahead. And then he just jumps up into the sky towards the sun, because, you know, the sun represents Saitama. He is Sun Man. He is Ra. Get upset about it. I don't care. That's where the chapter ends. He's going to go confront Amai Mask. So what is Saitama going to do? Well, I mean, he's Saitama. We know that he's not going to, like, be like, oh, sorry, Amai Mask, you're a monster, I gotta kill you. I guarantee that somebody is going to try to clickbait that, and I fully expect them to, because why would they care about this story the way that we do? I mean, they're just trying to get clicks and whatever, you know, whatever. They don't really care about one's narrative. I don't even want to get ahead of myself and assume that they're going to do that. I could just see in my head one of the big channels, like, putting, like, subtitles on their thumbnail of, like, Saitama seeing Monster Amai Mask, and they're like, sorry, Amai Mask, I have to kill you now. Something like that, you know, to get you to click. Maybe I gave them the idea to do that. Maybe it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. I'm not hating on it. It's just a part of the game. We're all trying to, you know, make content and get paid here. I mean, we'll find out what happens in the next chapter once he confronts him, but I'm not even spoiling anything when I say that Saitama isn't going to kill him, because we know Saitama's character. That just doesn't make sense, you know? So the world is now fully aware that Amai Mask is a monster. Like, everyone has seen it, and we, the audience, have now seen his true monster form. And people were just watching Amai Mask's fight against the pesky clown on social media and TV just from the start, because it's Amai Mask fighting somebody. He's like the most popular hero in the world, kind of. Now that it's been revealed that he's a monster, the numbers of viewers have been, like, quadrupled, essentially. And we're seeing, like, other people's reactions to it, such as, like, oh man, I can't believe Amai Mask was a monster this whole time. I was a fan of his. I even supported that guy. And I like the way that one is crafting this, especially in the manga version, because social media has really evolved a lot in the last 5 years, I suppose, from when he first made the sequence of the webcomic during the pandemic, because it's almost like he's getting canceled in a way, you know, like, it came out that he did something really bad, or, you know, one of those things that gets somebody canceled. Although in this case, it's pretty bad being a monster, especially lying about it this whole time, because in the One Punch Man world, being a monster means you're, like, beyond murderer or assaulter status for sure. There's no gray area with monsters in their society. Monsters, for as long as monsters have been a thing, which wasn't forever. I'm not really going to get too much into that in this video. I'm sure a lot of you don't really care about the deeper lore narrative of One Punch Man, but monsters are just bad. It's like, if you see a monster, you have to run away or kill them. There's no in between. It's not how, like, people see, like, wild animals or whatever, where they're like, some people want to pet them or just think that all animals are innocent and nice. So it's completely understandable that no one is going to rationalize with Amai Mask here, which of course makes what happens at the end of this chapter that much more significant. Although we kind of saw it coming, I guess. But anyway, like I said, the viewership of this has, like, quadrupled. Therefore, the pesky clown is growing in power yet again, because that's how one of his abilities works. The more attention that he gets, the greater in strength that he grows. And we're kind of seeing this fun little experiment that one has crafted, I suppose, because normally the pesky clown just going around on the street or whatever would at most get like a couple dozen people viewing him, depending on how much ruckus he's making, you know, on the street or whatever, from like random civilians. But given that he's fighting Amai Mask in a freaking theme park where everybody has a phone and the news is there and everything, you're getting, like I said, this wild experiment happening in real time and seeing these profound profound effects on him. Because we saw him go from like, I don't know, tiger level to demon level to dragon level, and now he's going even beyond dragon level, not above dragon. He's definitely not that strong. But the last that we got the update on him, when he was like in his big, you know, buff Hulk form, he was established to be dragon level by Amai Mask, and now he's evolving further beyond that in this chapter. So maybe he's mid-dragon, not like mid in the way that, like, you know, Gen Z says things are mid like middle. You know, like low dragon, which is like the base level strength for a dragon, and then mid or middle dragon, he's in between the highest level of a dragon, which would be high dragon. I'm just guessing, we don't know for sure. One himself probably doesn't even use that kind of vernacular to describe the strength of dragons. He kind of just keeps it ambiguous, which I think is fair for a power skill. But now that the pesky clown is in this crazy four-armed big mouth mode, he looks really cool, actually. He looks like a boss from like House of the Dead, like one of the later games, if you've ever played those. Maybe some of you are too young to even know what I'm talking about. But back in the day, there used to be these things called arcades, where you had these things called friends, like that you would actually hang out with in real life, and you would be able to shoot at a screen with these fake guns. And one of these games was House of the Dead, and the bosses kind of looked cool like this. Now that I'm thinking about it, there was actually a game called Carnival, which I know maybe 7 of you watching this video probably even know what that is. He'd fit more into that game. Anyway, sorry about the tangent there. I'm kind of rambly today. I have to make 3 videos, so, you know, bear with me. But the pesky clown, of course, wasn't defeated in the previous chapter. He did get his face crushed by Amai Mask, but he still was alive, and now we're seeing he's evolved, and he's like trying to pull Amai Mask apart at first, and he's like, you know, I'll just eat you. And despite Amai Mask straight up defending the civilians in this theme park here, they're still turning on him, which, like I said, totally understandable, very realistic. This would probably happen in real life. I mean, I don't think people would like stick around and watch 2 freaking god monsters fight each other, but like online they would be like, yeah, screw this guy, even though he saved me, I hate him. And Amai Mask is like, you know, they'll never be able to see me as a hero again after this, which maybe not never, and I'm not spoiling anything. We don't know how all of this resolves yet, even in the webcomic. Not that the manga has caught up to the webcomic. We still have at least 3 to 4 years before that happens. Amai Mask is like, even so, and his willpower just comes through. I guess you could say his humanity is still coming through here, and he busts out of the pesky clown's mouth and then just straight up explodes him with a double hammer fist. And this is a wildly violent sequence. I love it. And then for the coup de grace here, his like mushed up face on the ground, he just destroys that too, just to make sure that he's done. You know, further showing how like feral and monstrous Amai Mask is in this form. Even though, you know, while in his human form, Amai Mask was still pretty vicious in his moveset, this is just unhinged. Also, we keep seeing Narinki's private squad here, who are now like the security for Narinki's theme park. Like I said before, they were involved in that sequence that we're going to see in season 3 pretty soon, or kind of, I guess, maybe in the middle of it, where Amai Mask was about to kill them, and then E-Iron kind of stopped them from doing that. They're going to be involved in this sequence later on. I don't know, probably defending him in some way. And speaking of that, we see Blue Fire here. He kind of just shows up and he's like, what's going on here? He's like standing on 2 civilians' heads. Blue Fire is the guy that we saw at the beginning of season 2 at the end of the world prophecy meeting, where Sitch was trying to recruit all of the thugs and underworld guys to help in stopping Shibawa's prophecy. And Garo showed up, of course, and just took Blue Fire's hand off. You can actually see he has like a robot hand in replace of that now. I think this might be the first time we've seen him since that sequence. And Blue Fire is like a good guy. I mean, in more ways than one, because he's figuring out that, oh, this is Amai Mask. He's a freaking monster this whole time. Holy crap, but wait. He's defending everybody from this monster. Like, of course, he's got to be the rational one here because civilians are stupid. And one of the stupidest ones is this freaking guy throwing a rock at Amai Mask. He's like, hey, don't provoke him. And he's like, I don't care. He's a monster. I hate him. And he like throws a rock at him. And as that rock's going at him, Saitama shows up and grabs it. We saw that Saitama found out what was going on with Amai Mask in the previous chapter by looking at like the Times Square TV. He was like, all right, Genos, you know, I got to go take care of things. And he went off and now he's finally here. And Saitama is finally seeing Amai Mask in his monster form. I mean, Saitama knew that Amai Mask was a monster when he told him it, but he kind of accepted it because he knows that Amai Mask is like trying to do the right thing. And he's like, hey, you look pretty cool. Saitama is just appreciative that Amai Mask was able to not completely lose himself. Yes, he is a monster. Yes, everything that he's worked his entire life for has just fallen apart in the last 10 minutes, but he's still defending these people from the pesky clown and still not murdering everyone. And we knew that Saitama was going to be understanding of things, especially if Amai Mask didn't just attack the civilians or whatever. So it's really cool to see this, and I mean, I'm sure you know where things are going after this. I mean, you don't know where things are going ultimately, but you know where things are going with how Saitama is going to treat Amai Mask in the next chapter and vice versa. So we're picking up with Saitama confronting Monster Amai Mask here, and Amai Mask is still struggling with his monsterization here. He's still not fully thinking straight, and part of him wants to kill Saitama and be reborn as the ideal hero, and then the other part of him is like, hey Saitama, you should just kill me here, because if you do, then you'll essentially become the most famous hero overnight. You know, with the pariah that Amai Mask has become, exposing to the world that he is truly a monster. And Saitama's like, I'm obviously not gonna do that. I didn't really know what to make of you when we had tea at first, but now I realize you're a pretty cool guy. And he's essentially saying, like, despite you being exposed to the world and your entire life's work crumbling in a matter of minutes and fully becoming a monster, you still were able to save all of these people from the pesky clown and that Ferris wheel and everything. And Amai Mask is just like, look what I've become. It's over for me. And Saitama says, you're not done yet. Your story's actually just starting. And he touches him on the chest. This is like a recurring theme with Saitama. We've seen him do this a few other times in the series. One of the most notable examples is when he touches Genos. And I guess this is essentially what the core of One Punch Man is. I mean, I know on the surface, it's LOL, this is a funny series about a bald guy who's too powerful that he kills everyone with one punch and he has an existential crisis about it. It's just a gag series, guys. There's nothing to look deeper into it, which some people will tell you, I guess, and that's fine. I understand why you would think that. And I guess part of that is true, not the whole looking deeper into it, but it is parody to an extent. More so satire, I suppose. But one does have a deeper narrative to One Punch Man, and essentially the light versus the darkness. That's like what it boils down to. God, the darkness, the moon, Saitama, the light, the sun. Saitama is Sun Man. That is like what he is. God corrupts people's hearts and brings out the worst in them, making them into monsters, while Saitama does the opposite. So when he's touching people's hearts, he's like showing them the light or undoing the darkness that God has done. That's what One Punch Man is. But Amai Mask still, you know, conflicted, like grabs Saitama and he's like, hey, you know, I'm pretty strong in my monster form, right? You're gonna have to take me out or I'm gonna pop your head. Obviously, this does nothing to Saitama, even though we've established recently that Amai Mask is pretty freaking strong in his monster form, like maybe even High Dragon possibly. It's hard to say. And he is aware that Saitama is the one above all, I guess, but even then, characters in the series, despite knowing that, still don't fully understand how strong Saitama is at that point, which is understandable. I mean, how are they supposed to know? And then Saitama's like, okay, keep holding on to me then. And he just shoots off into the sky with Amai Mask, and that's it. And we don't know where they went, but Saitama is clearly doing Amai Mask a big favor here. Hey, also guys, can we get 2,000 likes on this video? I know you can do it. Just grab that phone, tap that like button. It would really help me out and the video, so thank you guys, I appreciate it. Also, there's a crater here left after Saitama jumps off the ground, and we see like a bird's eye view of it with the people all crowding around it. It obviously resembles the crater left in the moon from when Boros kicked Saitama there, but also I think this is symbolism for an eye. I assume this means that God is watching this, possibly, because usually this is like symbolic for that. I don't think this has to do with Saitama or Ra or whatever, because this is more so a left eye rather than a right eye. But also feel free to get really upset that I mentioned that, because as they're like gone, we hear Saitama saying, you're the one that should become the hero people dream of. You know, Amai Mask's big ultimate goal for humanity. So where is Saitama taking Amai Mask? Your guess is as good as mine. We may or may not come back to this soon, possibly, and see what is going on at this point. But like I said, Saitama obviously doing him a big favor, taking him out of the public eye here, because he is like public enemy number one, like literally. We're getting like an ambiguous time skip at this point, and we're seeing the aftermath of this. The Hero Association executives reacting to this, the news reacting to it. We even see that they were trying to interview Saitama about it, and he's like, yeah, no, don't talk to me. But they're like trying to figure out like, okay, did he actually become a monster? Is this some kind of publicity stunt? Was the footage altered in some way? And it's like, no, this is real. But this is obviously like a huge scandal, not only for the Hero Association, but also their sponsors, who are very upset with what's going on here. And this is happening at an awful time because the Neo Heroes are rising as well. We saw them a couple chapters back, the new rival organization to the Hero Association. But the main person that we want to focus on in this sequence here is McCoy. Because McCoy somehow figured out that Amai Mask was a monster and that all of this is going according to his plan. And you might be thinking like, wait, when? Let's go back a couple chapters. So if we go back to chapter 190, and that's going by the fan numbering, which is like the actual official continuity numbering. On Viz, it's chapter 188. But after it's revealed that those S-Class heroes had left the Hero Association to join the Neo Heroes, we see Amai Mask come into one of these executive meetings at the Hero Association. And he's reflecting on the S-Class heroes leaving, especially Child Emperor. And long story short, he pitches the idea to them that like, hey, I want to make Saitama the new face of the Hero Association. And he also says that like, you know, while all of you have been sitting here getting absolutely nothing done, I've been expanding my connections in all the areas, politics, government, business, you name it. Now this is the time for me to make use of those. So then he like convinces the executives to go along with what he wants. And this eventually leads to what he does with Saitama. But McCoy's also at that meeting, and coming out of it, he's like, what a fool. Thanks to my own information analysis, I know your true identity, Amai Mask. I set you up as the consultant and leader of the association and gave you connections in high society. When the time comes, I will reveal your identity and cause a scandal. Associating with you could be a liability to the high and mighty, so they'll never forgive you or the association. Then you're ours for the taking, and Neo Heroes will hunt you down. Both elites and common folk will support the Neo Heroes, but politically, bureaucratic, and financial circles will come down hard on the Hero Association. Then I will walk away with the Hero Association's vast store of information and join the highest ranks of the Neo Heroes. So this is all coming to fruition. McCoy knew that Amai Mask was a monster, I guess digging through his background information, which is understandable, I suppose, but it also makes you think like, did he send the pesky clown to the Narinki Park to purposely encounter Amai Mask? Because he knew that Amai Mask was interested in Saitama in that meeting. So it's plausible that he was just tracking him that whole time. And he figured out where he was going, and then he just sent the pesky clown there at the right time, because the pesky clown does just kind of randomly show up. And we know that McCoy does have access to monsters. He's been using them in that hero gambling ring that he's been doing with the other big donors of the Hero Association. So it makes sense that he could just have the pesky clown or whatever, especially because it's a tiger level, and that was the monsters that he was kind of dealing with before. Now, I'm not saying that's 100% the case, because like, how would he know that the pesky clown would have gotten so strong to the point of where Amai Mask would have been forced to change into a monster? I don't know. I mean, it seemed to have played out way perfectly than maybe what he even anticipated, but I don't know, maybe it did work out that way, or maybe it's just a coincidence. But what McCoy is saying there all lines up with what happened. So it wasn't like a bluff. He clearly knew what was going on, and it's all playing out the way that he wanted. Like, he's already been playing both sides of the Hero Association and the Neo Heroes. And now that the Hero Association is under the most scrutiny it's ever had, he's doing what he said. He's going to use that as an advantage to build himself up in the Neo Heroes. And all of those politicians and donors and higher-ups that Amai Mask had been mingling with are now going to go over to the Neo Heroes, because they're like, oh my god, that guy was a freaking monster this whole time? I can't deal with the Hero Association. I'm going to the Neo Heroes. And it all kind of wraps up with how McCoy is acting so smug here, because he says, most likely they're all just waiting to cash in on this scandal, make themselves look good, sell their stories, and earn a fat bonus. He's projecting here. One really likes doing that with his writing, and I appreciate it. But going further into the chapter, we find out that Watchdog Man is missing in action for some reason. This is the first time we heard about him in a long time. Watchdog Man, by far the most mysterious S-Class hero left. Like, now that Blast has been revealed and we know essentially everything about him other than like his origin, Watchdog Man is next up, with us knowing little to nothing about him. So the fact that he is missing, I don't know why. Maybe once we eventually find out more about him in like 6 years, we can backtrack everything and then it'll be like, oh, this makes sense now because we know this. But until that time comes, I just don't know much about Watchdog Man other than he's very likely to be based on Hachiko, and that probably has something to go into his backstory or whatever. But other than that, your guess is as good as mine. And we're also seeing that Zombie Man has yet to deliver a single statement or return from his investigation, of course, because the last time we saw him, he went back to Dr. Genus. This was after Saitama had defeated Garo and Zombie Man had witnessed it, and he realized, oh my god, everything Dr. Genus said about this hero that had removed his limiter was true. It had to be Saitama or Cape Baldy. And then he's like, hey, Dr. Genus, I want you to try and remove my limiter. And Dr. Genus was like, you know, this shop actually has a basement. I've got something interesting down there I want to show you. And that's where that ended. When are we going to come back to that? Probably not for another 1 to 2 years in the manga, probably. Just taking a guess. So then after this, we're coming to the Neo Heroes, and we're just seeing the news getting like testimonials from them essentially about what happened with Amai Mask. And they're talking to this guy A, who is one of the Neo leaders. This guy is a hitman with a special A-class bounty on his head, and his combat skills are effective against monsters too. That's like the exposition that we got about him. He looks super sketchy. It's because he very likely is. And we see that like his roots are growing in. I don't know if this is like a design change or one is specifically trying to tell us something about him dyeing his hair. I don't know. But he's essentially just giving like a clean-cut response to what had happened with Amai Mask, putting down the Hero Association and Amai Mask while putting up the Neo Heroes, of course. I mean, what else is supposed to do? Then we come to Metal Bat's response to what had happened with Amai Mask. And he says, Amai Mask, I don't know if you really are a monster or not, but if you forgot what it means to be a hero, then maybe you needed to fall. Being a hero isn't about looking perfect, it's about doing what's right. Quit hiding in the shadows. If you call yourself a man, stand tall and face the world. You might fool the association, but you'll never fool us heroes. And that's like real talk from Metal Bat. He's not trying to put up a facade for this camera here. Even though he is like a double agent working with Second Guard to figure out what's going on with the Neo Heroes, he still is loyal to the Hero Association essentially. But what he said here is real. But this is also really interesting because we know that Amai Mask and Metal Bat have had like their beef all throughout the series. So I like it. I like that he's not necessarily demonizing him, but he's like, hey, come out of the shadows and just admit it. You know, stand up for what you believe in. If you truly are a hero, then prove it. And as we come to the end of the chapter, it says, the world shifts and a new kind of hero rises under a different banner. So yeah, as it says, we're coming into this shift into the hero world, moving away from the Hero Association's monopoly on everything and moving into the Neo Heroes rising up. And I guess that's where this new arc is starting now. And it's going to be taking us for quite a bit, or at least the next couple chapters. But let me know what you think about this in the comments, guys. If you liked the video, please give it a like and please subscribe if you haven't already. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.